Alright, hi everyone. Normally, science videos take me a week, 2 weeks, a month to build. It's hard. It's a lot of work, and I have to do it all by myself. This took 4 hours. I'm preferencing this with that, and also that this isn't some conspiracy theory or some far-fetched Fiaura had a drunk one-night inspiration. I assure you, by the time I'm done, I'll prove that Vault 76 is an experiment vault, and why. Furthermore, you'll all be influenced on how you make your characters now for Vault 76 if you watch this. I give you warning. I imagine many of you will criticize people who make their characters at younger ages as special snowflakes, but I'm digressing. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about this. Vault 76 is an experiment because no one leaving that vault is under the age of 44. Most of the residents are in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. Now, before all of you go on to being keyboard warriors in the comments, let me explain. Vault 76 closing its doors with 500 residents, who are the best and brightest of America. They are pretty strict on that number, and looking at gameplay footage, I've noticed 5 things about leaving Vault 76. 1. You can't come back. The door seals and they vent all of the air inside out. If you stay inside, you die of suffocation. 2. There is no allotment for children leaving this vault. Everyone has to be an adult. There's no baby formula, there's no diapers, there's no toys, there's no cribs, there's no extra beds in any of the rooms, there's none of that. All of the rooms are for single adults. I understand that this is a Bethesda Fallout game and you aren't allowed to have dead children, but that's an entirely different tangent elsewhere, and it's kind of important to remember that dead children will be one of the horrors of the wasteland. But later. There are no facilities, rooms, or indications of childcare anywhere in 76 that we see, especially the residence quarters. As I said, all the rooms are clearly for one person, one individual. The entirety of this facility has no indication that there is supposed to be kids or raised children or people who were born in it. There are no facilities, rooms, or indications anywhere for this. There is also an extreme emphasis on not letting any residents die, and the overseer bragging that she's had 0 deaths, but also talking about an overfill vault. That's point 4. And 5, they lack the control equipment provided to vaults who were control vaults for leaving. This is very important, since there are also no deaths. Specifically, the Overseer says everyone made it, and how this vault operated. This means upon entering Vault 76, they likely took extreme measures to keep their numbers down. They are already borderline on hydroponics and food growth. They actually, the Overseer describes, they go into rationing almost immediately and go into more extreme rationing in the last 5 years that they had to stay over their originally projected 20 years. That's right, they had to stay 5 years longer for some reason. We don't know. Note the vault was intended to stay closed originally for only 20 years. We need to know why they had to stay an extra 5 years. We really do. But now we need to talk exactly who was in this vault. Who went in here? We see several people mentioned directly in logs. Now this footage is taken from Oxhorn and he gives his opinion of the game. You can take a look in the description below for his actual gameplay commentary and his footage. But the point here is that they are the cream of the crop of America. They are the best of the best. They are from luminary programs or extremely well educated. They are extremely well experienced. But there's something that really bothers me here. The time it takes to become an honors graduate or to achieve the positions that they claim to have achieved. Anyone who is with child of these individuals was born with any children, period. Probably the first 7 years. They don't know about the old world from anything but history books and the oral traditions passed down by the vault residents. They are also extremely well-behaved residents. It is mentioned that there are only 6 that have had to have behavioral disciplinary actions this year and 4 from last year. But let's get on to personnel we actually know of. The first one we're introduced is Jay Daly, who's been rationing Nuka-Cola Cherry for 20 years. Which means they are certainly older because it takes someone of older mind and discipline to ration a sweet soft drink for 20 years. And that's a big statement. I can't find his definite age, but I definitely know this individual came into the vault as an adult. Probably a middle-aged adult because of all the others. Next, we have T. Sullivan, who is a doctorate of engineering from GSU, a doctoral candidate on average, as a note, finishes around age 28. If you went in at 18 to get your bachelor's and then went on to a doctorate program, which is 5 years, you're looking at 27, 28 before you got that doctorate. Assuming you skip the master's portion. But most continual study programs happen until you're almost 30. This puts him, if he got his doctorate the day before the bombs fell, at over 50. He's between 53 and 55 years old at the absolute youngest. I have to assume he has other accomplishments that warranted him a place in this vault. So we're looking at him being close to 60. Our next resident, R. Villanueva, was a White House communications director for 3 years in 2066 until 2069. And the bombs fell in 2077. So I took a look at all the list of every single White House communications director since the position opened in 1969 with President Nixon. This position has on average a person who was 41 years old at the time they began their tenure as White House communications director. The youngest being under Donald Trump, who's 29. Miss Hope Hicks, age 28 at the time she served. She is the only one to do service at this level for this position, still in her 20s. The oldest was Jack Coloner, who served under Ronald Reagan in 1987 at age 57. This is an important note. If we assume a more traditional America, Mr. Villanueva is looking at being around age 41 when he served as White House Communications Director. We add in 11 years for the time since he took the job till the bombs fell. That's 11 more years that he had to be around. He's gonna... And then we have to add 25 years before he comes out of Vault 76. This individual is, if he's averaged 77 years old when he leaves the vault. If I take the youngest age he can possibly be and assume he got a miracle position like Miss Hope Hicks, he's 39 when he goes in the vault and comes out at 64. It's important to note here that we do see children mentioned. But I have to assume any children are either from the first couple of years before the cutoff point when they have to start when they have to start rationing, and since there's zero death rate, increases in population would be very bad. There are also no toys, extra supplies, different directions for people to leave who are leaving with children, and zero mention of them in the logs except for the overseer mentioning the firstborn kid. You would think security would have some problems with kids, but they don't. There's no mentions of kids causing problems. Next person on the list is A. Vince, who was a colonel in the U.S. Air Force and has a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from West Point, which, by the way, doesn't make a lot of sense because Air Force Academy is in Colorado. But I digress. How long does it take to achieve colonel in the U.S. military? Well, before I take that into account, we can actually extrapolate his age from his bronze Olympic medal he received in 2060. The average age of a decathlon participant in the Olympics is 24. The minimum age is 18. So let's give him the minimum, just to give him the best benefit of the doubt. If he's 18 when he won the medal, and the bombs fell in 2077, 27 years later, and then he has 25 years inside Vault 76, he's 60. That's the youngest he can be. He's 60 years old when he leaves on Reclamation Day. If I take the average age for him being a colonel in military service, he's around 65 because it takes around 11 years to achieve a command post position. And therefore he would have been older when he went into the vault because he would have needed at least a year for a tour of duty to acquire a Medal of Honor. So we add 6 more years after the time he gets the medal and 25 years in the vault. He's 66. So this man is between 60 and 66 years old, leaving to go into the wasteland. Our next vault resident is in Volkmir, who has 2 doctorates. If we factor in 5 years to get the first and 3 to 5 years to get the second one, he's at minimum age for this individual is 29 years old. But he also has a Nobel Laureate, a Nobel Prize from 2051. If we assume he got his Nobel Prize for his second doctorate paper, he still has another 26 years before going into the vault and 25 more years inside the vault. This man is 80 years old minimum. He's going into the wasteland unarmed, barely supplied at 80 years old. Please note, by the way, that when I mention he's 80 years old, this kind of explains why there's an extremely low number of incidents with security, because older individuals tend to not cause more problems on a criminal level. Furthermore, security has had their lethal weapons taken away from them. Why would you do this in even the most ideal circumstances? But this is starting to feel like the retirement home of vaults as we get to E. Jefferson, Nakamura, and Jake. Described in security, Jake was a lawyer. Average lawyer by the time they finish the bar is 25 years old if they started college when they were 18. But this goes deeper than that. He has to be an exceptional lawyer to be inside Vault 76. He's likely Attorney General, a high-end law firm, or a JAG lawyer, allowing him to perhaps be noticed in other ways or some really noticeable way for this character to have been noticed as a lawyer. He therefore has between 5 to 8 years really to make a name for himself and get noticed. Furthermore, the average age for an attorney general for West Virginia is 50. 50 years old has been the average age for an attorney general since West Virginia was founded. So let's assume he's very experienced, who has some key cases, and written a piece on philosophical law that's been published in a scientific journal. Okay, that puts him at around 35 entering the vault and 60 leaving. If we assume he's a JAG lawyer with high security clearance, he's at minimum a major, which is 7 to 9 years of experience in the military. He's entering the vault at 34 to 40 years old and leaving at 59 to 70. I could see how a little push might hurt him since he's in his older age at this point and might be a little feeble. These are all the people we have seen by name in Vault 76. The Overseer sounds old and elderly. Her voice has a distinct rasp that indicates older age or smoking for someone who's at least age 50. Furthermore, look at the soccer field they use. It's tiny. The amount of physical exercise you can really get is fairly low outside of the one weight room we see in the residence hall. I imagine they did have mandatory exercise to prevent from deteriorating inside the vault. I do not underestimate the ability of people to maintain their bodies into old age, by the way. But many of these people are non-military. They're also in jobs and positions that require tons of office work. Tons of office work and not 3 to 5 hours of daily exercise. Like my own body, they're starting to get to the middle age when they go into the vault, or they're in the early stages of old age. Now on to the fourth and final point here, the lack of death. The vault was overfilled and had to resort to rationing by the Overseer. No one is mentioned as having died inside Vault 76. And security was given specific instructions to never kill anyone inside there ever. This means there's no room for children. The vault was already stuffed to capacity when they closed the door. Children require space just like adults and often a specialized education training, additional play spaces to help grow up and develop healthy, and other activities to maintain their health, well-being, and keep them from misbehaving. This means if they were issuing strict rationing, it is another point to cite that very few children were born inside Vault 76. More than likely, everyone was issued birth control to keep the number of residents from reproducing down. And since Fallout is a 1950s style world, relationships that are cited as the cornerstone of Fallout's America would require them to spend a prolonged time to get to know each other before they would marry and consider having children. Furthermore, with that kind of rationing and Bethesda's stance that no one under 18 dies in their games, we have to assume that at a very early point, children were just cut off from being conceived. That's both a meta reason and an in-game reason why there's no kids here. Lack of resources and lack of facilities would denote that the Overseer would likely had ways to prevent reproduction and would have to have fixed that shortly before Reclamation Day. That assumes most of the residents can still reproduce at that point. Based upon the age of many we've looked at, they are likely post-menopause for women at that age, or if you're a man, you require assistance for sex via drugs like Viagra. This means if you're playing anyone under the age of 20, the year strict rationing would have been issued, you're a very special snowflake coming from Vault 76, likely accounted for by Vault-Tec's experiment. I'm getting to the experiment, by the way, but we have to finish accounting for all of the points here. The next point I have to cite is the lack of resources and specialized equipment for a control vault. This vault's lack of resources comes down to one very important piece of tech and one very important piece of planning. Vault 1383 and other control vaults were issued a GEC, as well as a plan for rebuilding once they left their vault, where their vault would become the center of their society. It would become effectively the capital of their new settlement. If you were not in a control vault, you did not receive a GEC. Vault 76 doesn't have a GEC. Which leads me to look at Vault 76 very, very closely. So what is the Vault experiment? Simple. Let's take the best we can find and see how they survive in the wasteland when they're old. You'll have a small group of younger people leaving the Vault who were born there, who don't know America as it was before, but they won't be the majority. No, most of these people have already had their children. Most of these people are already of the point in their lives where they've settled down and are in the prime or end of their careers. Many of the Vault residents entering are in their mid to late 30s. Some are over 50. Statistically, they are more colony managers and people who would pass on their knowledge rather than actively use it and be the initial settlers. They lack individuals who are young and ready to reproduce when they leave the Vault. This means the majority of Vault 76 members will die shortly after leaving. You've all seen the wasteland. You know what it's like. People in their 60s, 70s, and 80s survive in it? On their own? I mean, the answer is yes, but they are incredibly rare throughout the games. You can count them on 2 hands. Death comes swiftly in the wasteland, and honestly, you don't live to be old. Vault-Tec's experiment here is to see how the elderly will survive in the wasteland unassisted. Why do I say this is the experiment? Vault-Tec knows the dangers of the wasteland. They have all of the intel to know what's going on outside. But yet they are specifically told not to arm the residents or teach them how to use weapons. They are sent out with minimal supplies, no weapons, no information. Rumors of the wasteland are quashed and prevented from spreading. Any information about the outside world is specifically not allowed to be talked about. If these people want to rebuild, they should have come out with radiation gear 10 years post-bombs and began rebuilding with the purpose of removing radiation and establishing a settlement. Furthermore, they would have had in-depth information on the wasteland, weapons, training, a plan to leave. The Vault would have been the fortress at the heart of their empire, similar to how Shady Sands and Vault City formed the new California Republic. Instead, you, a resident of Vault 76, either born there, never remembering America, or at least in your mid-50s, if not older, are thrown into the wasteland without gear, without weapons, without training, and not being told what you're getting into. There is no reclamation plan. There is no plan to create a colony. There are no specializations for individuals leaving, and there's no training. You get your first training from the dead responders outpost you find shortly after leaving the Vault. Vault 76 is an experiment like every other Vault we've started in. Vault-Tec is up to their old tricks, and you can believe you are America's best and brightest, but what you really are is a bunch of older people released from a Vault with no gear or training. I fully expect now to play an older woman who constantly goes, "Back in my day, well, that isn't how we did it in old world America," or "before the war," just because it would be hilarious. So I'm going to take my Pip-Boy, my Vault suit, bottle of water, bottle of Rad-X, bottle of Radaway, stim pack, and my camp, and walk out into the wasteland and probably die. Welcome to Vault 76. Welcome to a giant social wasteland experiment. What are your thoughts and your opinions? By a Fiaura video if you didn't see me, so here's my face. Hi. Let me know. Pick this apart. Discuss. This Vault 76 isn't a control vault. And this is the first experiment that I could put together that they might be running. There are some others that come to mind. Some things that have been mentioned, like the fact the timescale in Fallout 76 is drastically different than Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Fallout 4, who were very consistent with their timescale in terms of day-night cycle. Or a few other things. But let's discuss this first. How these old geezers gonna survive in the wasteland?